The twin flame connection is often described as one of the most profound, intense, and transformative relationships a person can experience. Unlike ordinary relationships, this bond mirrors the deepest aspects of the self, both light and shadow. While the encounter between twin flames ignites feelings of profound love, it can also awaken fears, insecurities, and unresolved wounds that have long been buried. It is not uncommon for twin flames, after feeling an overwhelming magnetic pull toward each other, to suddenly go silent or cut off contact altogether. This phase can be deeply confusing and painful for both sides. However, this period of separation or silence isn't necessarily a sign of failure. Rather, it is often an essential part of the journey toward healing, growth, and eventual reunion. In this discussion, we will explore 4 key reasons why twin flames may withdraw, become silent, or seemingly run from the connection, shedding light on the hidden dynamics at play beneath the surface. The triggering of deep-seated fears and emotional wounds. When twin flames meet, it feels as though the soul is staring into its own reflection. This reflection doesn't just highlight the beauty, love, and potential within, it also brings to the surface old wounds, insecurities, and unresolved traumas that may have been buried for years or even lifetimes. The intensity of the connection can become emotionally overwhelming. The twin flame acts as a mirror, exposing hidden fears such as abandonment, rejection, unworthiness, and past emotional pain. Even if these fears have been dormant in everyday life, the twin flame encounter forces them to rise in full view. For some, this emotional exposure feels too vulnerable, too raw. In response, the natural instinct is to retreat, sometimes suddenly and without explanation. Silence becomes a form of self-protection, a way to create distance from the emotional storm triggered by the connection. It is not necessarily a reflection of a lack of love, but rather the surfacing of internal pain that feels too difficult to face in the presence of the other. In many cases, the silence serves as a coping mechanism while one or both individuals process their emotions, attempt to heal, and navigate the overwhelming energy that the twin flame bond brings. Until those deep-seated fears are addressed and transformed, maintaining close contact can feel emotionally destabilizing. The push-pull dynamic, the runner and chaser cycle. One of the most well-known patterns in twin flame connections is the runner and chaser dynamic. This push-pull cycle often emerges shortly after the initial intensity of the connection becomes overwhelming for one or both partners. While the bond is undeniable, so too are the fears and emotional triggers it awakens. In this dynamic, the runner typically feels threatened by the depth of the connection. The intensity can stir up fears of vulnerability, loss of independence, emotional pain, or being unworthy of such a powerful love. Their instinctive response is to withdraw, avoid, or even cut off contact entirely in an attempt to regain a sense of control and safety. On the other side, the chaser feels the separation deeply and often tries to restore the connection. This person may pursue the runner emotionally, energetically, or physically, trying to heal the disconnection and bring back the harmony they experienced initially. However, the more the chaser pushes, the more the runner feels the need to pull away, intensifying the cycle. This painful dynamic isn't meant to punish either party. Instead, it acts as a catalyst for growth, forcing both individuals to confront their inner wounds, codependency, abandonment issues, or fear of intimacy. The cycle continues until both twins start doing the necessary inner work, learning to find wholeness within themselves rather than seeking it solely through the other. Ultimately, the runner and chaser dynamic is not a permanent state. It is a temporary phase that helps both twins evolve spiritually and emotionally, preparing them for a reunion based on balance, mutual healing, and unconditional love. Spiritual awakening, overload, and the need for inner growth. The twin flame connection is not just an emotional experience, it is a profound spiritual awakening. When twin flames come into each other's lives, their souls are thrust into a rapid acceleration of growth and transformation. This can trigger what is often called spiritual awakening overload, an overwhelming influx of energetic shifts, realizations, and emotional upheaval that neither twin may have been prepared for. Unlike typical relationships, the twin flame bond is designed to awaken both individuals to their true, higher selves. It forces them to break down illusions, ego-based patterns, and limiting beliefs that have held them back in their lives. This awakening can be beautiful, but also deeply unsettling. Why spiritual overload happens? When the twin flame connection is activated, it ignites intense spiritual phenomena such as heightened intuition and psychic abilities, intense emotional releases or mood swings, sudden shifts in perception and consciousness, feeling disconnected from the material world, the surfacing of karmic wounds and past life memories, intense synchronicities, dreams, and spiritual signs. This spiritual acceleration can be exhilarating for some, but completely destabilizing for others. The sudden shift in reality can create a sense of confusion, fear, and overwhelm. Daily routines, career goals, and even existing relationships may suddenly feel meaningless or misaligned. The need for retreat and isolation. When the inner world is turned upside down, one or both twins may instinctively retreat to process these massive energetic shifts. Going silent or cutting off contact is not necessarily about rejecting the other person. It is often about survival on a spiritual level. The soul needs space to integrate the lessons and energies being downloaded, heal old patterns and wounds, reconnect with their own identity and purpose beyond the relationship, build a stable spiritual foundation before continuing the connection. This retreat often looks like going silent, disappearing from communication, or focusing intensely on inner work, meditation, or personal healing. To the other twin, this sudden silence can feel like abandonment, but in truth, it is a sacred pause for growth. The illusion of separation. During spiritual growth, while physical or emotional distance may occur, the spiritual connection between twin flames remains unbroken. The telepathic bond, the energetic connection, and the sense of knowing the other is always there do not fade, even when contact is lost. This is part of the paradox of the twin flame journey. Physical separation can coexist with spiritual closeness. The silence, though painful, serves as a crucible for both twins to become the highest versions of themselves. Without this step, the relationship would collapse under the weight of unhealed wounds, codependency, and spiritual imbalance. Signs you or your twin are experiencing spiritual awakening overload, feeling emotionally numb or hypersensitive, losing interest in previous goals, hobbies, or social circles, feeling detached from reality or experiencing existential crises, intense desire for solitude, nature, or spiritual practices, sudden changes in sleep patterns, appetite, or energy levels, a strong urge to explore spirituality, healing modalities, or esoteric subjects. The transformation within the silence. Though the silence feels like a painful void, it is actually a space where both souls undergo profound transformation. This period allows each person to rediscover their purpose beyond the relationship, heal childhood wounds, karmic patterns, and past life traumas, balance the masculine and feminine energies within themselves, cultivate unconditional self-love, which becomes the foundation for unconditional love with the other, returning after inner growth. Once the spiritual overload begins to stabilize, the energy shifts. The twin who withdrew often returns with more clarity, strength, and openness. Similarly, the twin who was left behind learns to release attachment, trust the divine timing, and focus on their own growth. The reunion, when it happens, is not just a romantic coming together. It is a meeting of two whole, empowered, spiritually awakened individuals who are now ready to build something grounded, purposeful, and sacred together. Fear of losing control and identity. Dissolution. The twin flame connection is unlike any other because it challenges not only the heart, but also the very core of the ego, the constructed sense of self that each person develops over a lifetime. One of the lesser discussed but deeply impactful reasons twin flames go silent or cut off contact is the fear of losing control and the dissolution of personal identity. Meeting one's twin flame is like looking into a spiritual mirror. It reflects not only the beauty and light of who you are, but also everything you've hidden from yourself, your wounds, fears, insecurities, and the false narratives you've built about who you are. The ego, whose job is to maintain a stable identity, often reacts to this by going into a state of panic. Why the fear of losing control arises. The twin flame connection is so intense that it can feel as though everything you thought you knew about love, life, and yourself is being stripped away. This creates a profound sense of vulnerability, leading to fears such as loss of independence. The bond feels so consuming that one or both twins may fear becoming overly dependent or losing their autonomy. Loss of identity. The merging of energies can blur the line between self and other, causing one or both to fear they are losing themselves entirely. Loss of emotional control. The flood of emotions, ranging from overwhelming love to fear, anger, or sadness, can feel uncontrollable. Fear of surrender. The relationship requires full surrender to the soul's journey, which can feel terrifying for someone used to operating from logic, control, or the mind. In response to these fears, the instinctive reaction is often to withdraw. Silence, distancing, or cutting off contact becomes a way to regain a sense of personal control and protect the fragile ego from being completely dismantled. The ego death process in twin flame connections. The psychological term for this experience is ego death. In spiritual terms, it's the collapse of the false self, the identity constructed from societal expectations, past traumas, and personal narratives. The ego perceives the twin flame as both the greatest love and the greatest threat, because this person has the power to dissolve all illusions. Signs of ego death in the twin flame journey may include feeling like you don't recognize yourself anymore, questioning everything about your life, beliefs, and values, oscillating between craving closeness and desperately needing distance, experiencing existential anxiety, depression, or emotional numbness, feeling like you are losing control over your emotions or reality itself. Identity. Dissolution as a catalyst for transformation. While frightening, the dissolving of the ego is not meant to destroy a person, it is meant to liberate them. The twin flame connection forces both individuals to release limiting identities based on fear, separation, and illusion. What emerges on the other side is a more authentic, soul-aligned self. This process often requires temporary separation. One or both twins may go silent not because they do not care, but because their very sense of self is being dismantled and rebuilt. It is a sacred period of recalibration, where the soul prepares to step into a higher version of itself, free from the confines of the ego. Rebuilding a new sense of self. In the aftermath of this identity breakdown, both twins begin to reconstruct themselves, not as half of a pair, but as whole beings in their own right. They learn to balance autonomy with union. Cultivate inner peace without relying on external validation. Discover a new identity rooted in authenticity, self-love, and purpose. Relate to their twin not from need or fear, but from wholeness and freedom. When fear turns to freedom. Once the fear of losing control is faced and transcended, the connection no longer feels threatening. It feels empowering. The identity that emerges is no longer based on the fragile structures of the ego, but on the infinite nature of the soul. Communication can then reopen, not out of desperation, but out of mutual respect, love, and spiritual maturity. In this sense, the fear that once drove the separation becomes the very doorway through which both souls find not only reunion, but a deeper connection to themselves, to each other, and to the divine.